Barracuda Strike is a 2026 Bollinger & Mabillard family inverted roller coaster located at SeaWorld San Antonio. It was built along the ski lake and featured stats such as a top speed of 44 miles per hour, a height of 90 feet, and a track length of 1,800 feet. The park has stated that the first drop is about 10 stories, making it a bigger first drop than Great White. It features a lot of theming in the queue line and along the layout, and that now signature B&M rattle. I felt that this was the perfect coaster to reintroduce my ranking system on this channel. I call it the Hennisphere scale, and today I'm going to be scoring Barracuda Strike across 10 different categories. 5 of them are the Enthusiast categories, and the other 5 are more GP or general public categories. When you add up both of these categories totals, you'll get a score out of 100. So let's begin. The first category is the height. This stands 90 feet tall, which earns it a 4 out of 10. Next is the speed. Top speed of 44 miles an hour, this earns a 4 out of 10. The drops. This has a very spectacular first drop right down to the lake. It actually goes about 15 feet into the water, and it features a lot of floater airtime, especially if you are in the back row. This gets a 6 out of 10. G-forces. When I was riding this on my second day, the professional camera crew that was there, Escape Visuals, asked me if I wanted to see the G-forces associated with this ride, and of course I said yes. So on one of their Apple Watches, they actually registered a max negative G-force of negative 0.7 Gs and a positive G-force max of 3 Gs, while the negative G max occurred only once. That positive 3 Gs max occurred 2 or 3 times along the layout, so this is getting a 5 out of 10 for G-forces. The wow factor category is going to be pretty mild because this coaster design already has a reputation. It was built at Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Busch Gardens Tampa, so it's getting a 5 out of 10. When you add up these enthusiast categories, you get 24 out of 50. Now moving to the general public categories, we'll start with the theming. This is very impressive for SeaWorld San Antonio and pretty impressive for the chain as a whole because this is something we don't always see with their roller coasters. They heavily themed the queue line and the station. It resembles a pier or a boardwalk, and there's a lot of fish hanging from the ceiling, and they're actually wind chimes that make noise when it's windy. This also features good onboard audio, and it builds the suspense as you're going up the lift hill. And then it also creates a different atmosphere when you hit that final magnetic brake run. Along the ride, you have another bit of theming where a Barracuda is diving deeper after its prey, and you can see some coral reef, rock work, and colorful schools of fish along the main part of the layout. So this actually gets an 8 out of 10, very impressive. For restraints, these are quite comfortable, and I'm going to explain in a bit how you can ride defensively, but the restraints are not intrusive at all to your upper body. These are not your typical over-the-shoulder B&M restraints, which would score lower than this one. These come down and rest on your thighs, and I have to say, if you are a larger guest or you just have really thick thighs, try the test seat because that has a little green indication light if you're going to be good or not riding it, but just beware, even if it gives you the green light, you still may not be able to ride. I did see some people turned away, unfortunately, and they thought they were going to be good because they tried the test seat, but they could not get the lights to show up in the station, and ops could not dispatch the train until they got off the ride. So just beware of that, but these restraints are very comfortable, and some people may say there's nowhere to hold on. They have handles built in to the seat bottoms, so that's where they suggest you hold on. But I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. These are very good restraints. The layout. The layout of this ride is overall short. However, there are some really good moments of positive Gs. You have some overbanked turns that are pretty fun, and after that first drop, which I've already said is spectacular, you do a turnaround over by the tortoise area, and it gives you kind of a little fake out where you kind of bank hard to the right while still coming up over that track section off of the first drop, and then you swing back the opposite way to dive into some of that theming. That element where you are kind of sideways at the crest of that hill is really fun. And as you come back over the pathway underneath Steel Eel, which is also a very cool touch, you hop onto a boardwalk. And this is something I haven't seen on too many other inverts. It's really cool. It's a great finale. So I'm giving the layout a 7 out of 10. For the length, this is 1,800 feet of track. Pretty short, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. And finally, the smoothness. This is where we can talk about the B&M rattle, and I just want to say that just because something has a slight rattle does not mean it's a bad ride. I'm sure you've heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, and that is the case in this scenario. You can have rides out there that are much smoother than this, but that does not mean this is a bad ride. This is a good ride, just like the smoother coasters are a good ride. And overall, I would say that this ride is not rough to the point where you would get a headache or you would say, you know what, I don't want to do that again. I've been on this 10 times now in its opening week, and I would do it again. And amongst all of the other people who rode it as many times as I did, they say the same thing. They love it. They'll get on it again and again. I think the park certainly has a winner on their hands. So for smoothness, while I can't say that it's glass smooth or butter smooth, it's going to get a 7 out of 10 because it is totally manageable. I'm going to tell you how to ride defensively right now. The rattle is something that you can mitigate to an extent, and that's by limiting the total surface area that your body is making contact with the train. So to limit it, I would say don't hold on to those seat handles. Instead, keep your arms up and also lean slightly forward so that your whole back and your head is not resting against the seat back, because you're gonna feel the rattle through 4 or 5 different parts of your body if you're holding on and sitting all the way back. But you can limit the rattle by only feeling it through your butt and through your legs. There are plenty of B&Ms out there that I have ridden that I would not want to ride a second time because of how rattly they are, and also the restraints are different. They're very intrusive. You feel like sometimes your head can ping pong against the sides. So this ride thankfully does not have that issue. So adding up these 5 categories, you get a 34 out of 50. And when you add it to your enthusiast categories, you get a total of 58 out of 100, which is respectable for a family coaster. This actually ties it with Mindblower at Fun Spot America in Kissimmee for 45th place out of 64 coasters ranked so far. And I have more than 100 coasters that I can rank moving forward. And I'm going to be posting my reviews to coasters from Cedar Point, Kings Island, parks like that, as well as some big coasters that have been built recently, such as Velocicoaster, Iron Gwazi, and Stardust Racers. And a couple of things you should note as well are that the lockers by Steel Eel are where you can store some of your items for riding Barracuda Strike. However, in the station, they do have a lot of clear plastic bins where you can place all of your stuff. And I would suggest not riding with anything in your pockets because the lap bar does fit very snugly. It doesn't staple you, but if you have stuff in your pockets, it's gonna be a lot more uncomfortable because the restraint will be pressing directly on your phone, your keys, whatever's in there. So just take all that stuff out of your pocket. And also, some people think the drop is not as big as Great White because Great White has a higher top speed on that first drop. But I think this is due to train weight because Great White has 32 columns for 32 seats, while Barracuda Strike has 10 columns for 20 seats. So there's a lot less weight there. And that's why Great White will pick up speed faster. And I've also seen some people say that they thought this was gonna have that water splash effect like Manta does at SeaWorld Orlando, and who knows, SeaWorld could go back and add that, potentially. One thing you should know is that at night, there are lights placed in the main part of this layout. And I was told by a park representative that these are temporary lights. They are from Hollow Scream and the Christmas celebration event. And eventually those lights will go back to being used for those events and some more permanent lights will be installed. And last but not least, the true mark of a good coaster, I found out after riding so many on some different coaster trips, is the rewritability. People can post whatever they want on social media about, oh, this should have been a Vekoma or this should have been a Mach, whatever. The point is, this is a good ride, this is a good fit for the park, and it's very rewritable. I think that kids will really enjoy this because Beach Rescue Racer usually has a 10 to 20 minute line every time I visit this park on the weekend. And this, again, is another family ride where kids are gonna ride it, probably right after getting the courage to ride Beach Rescue Racer. The height limit is only 42 inches tall, and that should be celebrated. That's a very good thing for this park. That is a wrap on my review of Barracuda Strike. Please subscribe because there's gonna be potentially 100 more coaster rankings like this. That was another day in the Hennisphere.